Hello, everyone, and welcome to Municipal Governance 101, City Hall. This is the second part of our Municipalities of Saskatchewan's Municipal Governance 101 series. Tonight's session is designed to give you the opportunity to ask a panel of individuals experienced in municipal governance your municipal governance questions. My name is Sarah McMillan, and I'm Municipalities of Saskatchewan's Communications Advisor. We are recording this evening's session, and we will send it out later this week. If you missed part one of our series, Municipal Governance 101, Introduction to Local Governance, that's completely okay because we will be sure to send out the link to you as well when we send out tonight's recording. If you know someone who wasn't able to attend either of these sessions, they can also watch them on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, or they are also available, or they will be available on our website. So thank you again for everyone for attending. Before we get started, I'm just going to give you a quick tour of our platform. So we're using Zoom. You will see that all the icons are on the bottom of your screen. There's an audio settings button to the left of your screen. If you're having any audio trouble at all, just use that to switch to phone audio. There's a Q&A pod, and that's where we're going to ask that you put your questions for this evening's event. If you see a question that you like in the Q&A pod, be sure to click on the thumbs up button underneath, and that'll vote that question to the top, so we're sure to ask it. You'll also see the chat pod. I see some of you are already using it, so that's great. You can put any conversation in there. You can send it to a panelist or to everyone, but we ask that you be sure to put your questions in the Q&A pod. Unfortunately, questions put in the chat pod won't be asked this evening. So before we get started, we just have a short poll that we'd like you to fill out. So you should see the poll pop up on your screen. We'll give you a few minutes to fill that out. All right, I would now like to thank our webinar sponsor, Brownlee. Thanks to Brownlee's sponsorship, we are able to offer this session for free. So I'd like to now hand it over to Michael Sullivan from Brownlee to bring greetings on their behalf.
Well, thank you, Sarah, and just a welcome to everyone that's on the line here tonight for Municipal Governance 101 City Hall. My name is Michael Sullivan. I'm a partner with the law firm Brownlee LLP. And on behalf of all of my partners, our associates, our students and staff at Brownlee, we just want to thank you for joining us tonight. We're so pleased and honored to be sponsoring this session. And we're very happy to have a relationship with the Municipalities of Saskatchewan as a central source partner and preferred legal services provider for your members. If you're new to the municipal world and not familiar with Brownlee, we are a full service law firm that has been serving and advising municipalities and municipally related entities for over 85 years across Western Canada. And if you're not familiar with municipalities, municipalities are corporations and they have all the same needs, legal needs and requirements that other entities would have, as well as all of the public sector governance requirements. So you can imagine that in addition to your council governance roles and responsibilities, we provide advice related to assessment and taxation, planning and development, labor and employment, privacy and access to information, and many, many other areas of law to help municipalities provide the services and facilities that their ratepayers and residents are demanding. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's session. Please do ask your questions. It's important that if you're looking at running for office, that you do your due diligence and are well informed about what the role of a municipal councillor is, what is a municipality, and what kind of expectations are placed on elected officials. And then also that you really truly consider your reasons for running, and to ensure that you understand that role and the requirement that you're there to serve the public interest as an elected official. So with that, I'll turn it back to Sarah. Look forward to participating in the Q&A and hope you enjoy this evening's presentations.
Thank you, Michael. As Michael mentioned, he will be one of our panelists today, so little free legal advice for you guys. It's also my pleasure to introduce our other panelists this evening. So joining us, we have Councillor Mike O'Donnell. He's sitting for his fourth term as a member of Regina City Council, representing the residents of Ward 8. Hi, Michael. He's a retired school administrator, sports administrator, and teacher. Following his teaching career, Mike was the executive director for the Regina Soccer Association, spearheading soccer's role in the construction and operation of the Credit Union Eventplex. Mike is also Municipalities of Saskatchewan's executive member, representing Regina and Saskatoon. Also joining us on our panel this evening is the lovely Councillor Randy Golden from the City of Yorkton. Randy's many years of work in the community, as well as her involvement with provincial and national organizations, have kept her in close touch with the people of Yorkton and the issues that directly affect them. She has served on all council committees and commissions and has been very active in both the provincial and national associations. She was first elected to Yorkton City Council in 1997. Randy has been a champion for the tourism industry in Saskatchewan for more than 20 years, working with Tourism Yorkton and the Yorkton Film Festival. As an active community volunteer, she has served on numerous community, provincial, and national committees and organizations. She's also Municipalities of Saskatchewan's East Central Regional Director. Our final panelist tonight is Councillor Glenn George, who is serving his third term as a councillor in the City of Melfort. Hi, Glenn.
Hi.
He was first elected in 2009. He and his wife Peggy are retired home hardware dealers. They sold the business to their daughter and son-in-law in 2007. George and Peggy have 2 children and 4 grandchildren, and Glenn has been very active in the community of Melfort and was named Melfort Citizen of the Year for 2006. He is also Municipalities of Saskatchewan's Northeast Regional Director. So I want to thank you guys all for being on our panel today and for sharing your knowledge with us. So if anyone has any questions, I encourage you to put them in the Q&A pod. That's where we'll be taking questions from. And remember that if you see a question that you like, be sure to click on the thumbs up so that it'll upvote it. And that's the question that we will ask next. So I actually have a question to get us started. So this is a question for our municipal councillors. What made you guys first get involved in municipal politics? We'll start with you, Randy.
Well, good evening, everyone from my community of Yorkton. Well, as Sarah introduced me, I've been involved in municipal politics for many, many years. Before that, I was very active in our community, like each one of you, with being active in my children's activities, and was very involved in the Yorkton Figure Skating Club, and thought that through the rec board, of course, the figure skaters weren't getting as much ice as minor sports, right? I mean, and that's kind of my thought process. So I decided I was going to run for council. It was just a natural progression, and have really enjoyed it for many, many years. And I just find it very rewarding to be involved in decisions that will really impact our community, sometimes not immediately, but over the long term.
Thanks, Randy. Now I'll pass it over to you, Glenn. What inspired you to first get involved?
Well, it's a long story, but I said I would never get involved in politics, and I did. I said I would only run for 2 terms, and now I'm finishing my 3rd term. At first, I said I never wanted to be mayor, and I'm going to throw my hat in the ring to be for the job of mayor of Melfort. I had one reason to get involved, and it was just, you know, it was a narrow-minded thing, you know, like I thought should get changed, and my wife told me, you know, you always said if you're not prepared to do anything about it, you know, if you're not prepared to run, then don't complain about it. So I ran and found out that there was a heck of a lot more things than my one little narrow problem, which really wasn't a problem. You just need to get involved and make it happen. And I did. That's all I have.
Thanks, Glenn. And now I'll turn it over to you, Mike. How did you first get involved in municipal politics and how did you get on Regina City Council?
Thanks very much for the opportunity. And I want to thank people for even having a thought about running and serving their community. I think it's really important. I was an educator all of my life. So the idea of perhaps taking another step and working in a community as a leader was very important to me. And I had lots of background in terms of sport in particular, but I found that the skill set of being a administrator in schools and a mediator has served me really well. So my simple reason was I was looking for something to do on a part-time basis on a personal level. Just so you know, it's not part-time, it's full-time, very rewarding. You have to love people. So I wish all of you well, and thanks for taking part in this.
You actually just led into my next question, Mike, which is, we hear quite often, what is the time commitment of being on City Council? So I will let you start, Glenn. Just kind of if you can give people an insight on what time commitment you dedicate to council.
Well, like I thought when I first started that, 20 hours a week is half a work week would be lots. And I put in at least that much because I like to drive around and see what's happening. And I like to, there's meetings and stuff like that. And, so you have to meet after supper and I count that into the 20 hours, but I would say that it's a 20-hour a week commitment, between the meetings and what have you. So, I thought it would be less than that for sure. And I remember a couple of terms ago talking a councillor into running and saying, oh yeah, it's easy peasy, but every year it seems to get harder and harder with regulations and stuff like that. And now this COVID thing came along that really took a lot of time, but no, it's rewarding. It's what I like to do. I like to be part of the action. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Glenn. And how about for yourself, Randy? I know you're involved in all kinds of other committees and everything, but I guess in terms of council commitments.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Glenn, for that too. And I've met over the last few years many people that have been thinking about running for a council position, and I like to provide a lot of encouragement, but I like to also be very realistic about it for time commitments. I really say to them, this is something that you have to take time in almost every day of your time, because there's always something coming up and you need to be prepared to deal with that. So take some time every day to piece off a little bit. And something that's potential counselors maybe don't understand quite a bit is that there's a great deal of prep work. There's reading time, there's research time that you have to put into it, besides the actual meetings and the talking with residents. So, I've never put an hour commitment to it, Glenn, as you have, but I always say, be prepared to piece off part of every day and be prepared when you go in your community. People know you and they're going to want to talk with you. And if it's not good at that immediate time, take time to set up time when it is good to talk to your residents because you're accessible, I think. And that's why we always say we're closest to the people that elect us. And we are. We're in the grocery stores. We're walking down the sidewalks. So take time in every day for your role as a council person.
Randy, Mike, do you have anything that you want to add as for Regina City Council, how much time you dedicate?
Sure, I'll like Glenn, I kind of tracked it a few times to see what it was like over this last number of years. And as I've been interviewed and asked by people here in Regina who want to run, I use the number of 30 hours a week. As Randy said, there is lots of prep. Sometimes our agendas can be upwards of 400 to 600 pages for some of our council meetings. So it can be a lot of reading, a lot of prep. What I would also add, and this is picking up on something Randy said, from the time you're elected, you are a counselor all day and every day. So when you do go for a coffee or you go to the grocery store, you can and should be asked questions. So you have to kind of also keep your head up all the time about what is expected of you. You're always being watched. To me, that's good, but it just means that it's pretty hard to relax sometimes as well. Thank you.
Kind of moves into the next question, which is, what's the most frustrating part of being a counselor, both while working and in your personal life? I'll start with you, Glenn.
I'll go first for sure. Okay, I forgot the question already.
What's the most frustrating part of being a counselor, both while
Oh,
working
right.
and in your personal life?
Yeah, the most frustrating part for me is government works very slow, and you have to be able to tone yourself down. Like, you become a counselor and you think you can make things happen right now. You can't, eh? Because there's government regulations all over the place. And so you have to learn how to work to and around those regulations to make things happen. And once you slow down and start doing doing your homework early and often, it's a lot better. In my personal life in Melfort, it's not a problem at all. I make sure that I know everything about everything, so that if I get hit up in the grocery store or the coffee shop, 9 times out of 10, I have the answer. And if I don't have the answer, I get their number and I say, I'll find out and I'll get back to you. And I try my best to get back to them that same day. But I'm a retired guy, so I have a lot of time. Now, if you work for a living, which I did the first couple of years when I was a counselor, it's pretty tough. But that's all I have.
Thanks, Glenn. Randy, did you want to add what's the most frustrating part of being a counselor, both while working and in your personal life?
Well, and I think, Glenn, I so understand what you just said. One of the things I find frustrating and I found most difficult when I first started being on council was it became clear very quickly that you're there to make decisions and to make the best decisions using the research you have, the recommendations from administration, and the conversations you have. And in making those decisions, you have to understand there's a good possibility you will not make everybody in your community happy with that decision. And at times that was very frustrating to me because there were people that were unhappy, and I'm a nurturing kind of person, want to make people happy. But when we sat down to have discussions about it, and I talked about how I made that decision, and if there was some overwhelming research that showed it may be wrong, then maybe I have to reconsider. But that was very, very frustrating to me. But very quickly I learned that our role is to make decisions on behalf of our community and do your research and get your work done, and then make the decision that you feel is the best for your community.
Thanks, Randy. Mike, I will ask you the same question. What's the most frustrating part of being a counselor, both while working and in your personal life?
Thank you. I found it, and I was not prepared in the beginning for neighbor versus neighbor disputes where they would want me to be the one to choose between them. And so, the idea of meeting with the folks or getting other people involved to make those decisions, I just wasn't prepared for that kind of a phone call, and I found that frustrating. On a personal level, I think it was not so much a frustration as it was an adjustment to that notion that I referenced earlier. I'm a counselor all the time. When I go in the store, go in the coffee shop, it's not Mike O'Donnell guy, it's Mike O'Donnell counselor. So anytime I speak, I make sure that I work from that point of view. So it's just an adjustment, not a frustration. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Oh, before you go, I'm going to ask you the next one.
All right.
I guess they would like to know, did you have any prior government or governing experience prior to running? And did you find, if so, did that experience help?
So I did not have prior experience dealing with a federal or a provincial government. I did not. I had experience dealing with school boards, which is not really far removed from dealing with that same notion. I did not find that either a distraction or a detriment. You have to have a quick learning curve to figure out those things. but it's always about personal relationships. So you deal with people face to face, and I found that not necessary. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. All right, Glenn, now that's questions to you. Did you have any prior government or governing experience prior to running? And did you find that it helped?
I found that it helped. I was original Melfort Mustang when we came into being in 1988. My wife and I volunteered all the way through. I served on the board, and I served 4 years as president. And in those years, we had a lot of tough decisions to make about money mostly, and I found that really helped. I also helped with, I found that working in a hardware store and solving problems, you know, people have problems with merchandise, or they buy the wrong thing and then it's my fault and stuff like that. I found that I became a really good mediator, and I'm like Randy, I'm a people pleaser. I try to make everybody happy all the time. And I know I can't, but I do my best.
Thanks, Glenn. All right, Randy, you're up.
That's a great question. And I found that my experience came from, I was president of the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. Previous to that, the Saskatchewan Parks and Recreation Association. So I had, I guess I had some experience chairing those national and provincial organizations. Also, we dealt with provincial and federal government on advocacy issues. So I brought some of that experience in. But even just being involved in your local associations and nonprofits where there's governance that you have to follow, whether you're the chair or the secretary treasurer or whatever position, that always helps. But then when I did get elected, I very quickly took all the educational opportunities that I could and still do. So I think that's really important, that just because you become a counselor, you don't all of a sudden cross the path and you know everything. There's a constant learning pattern that you have to.
Thanks, Randy. That actually ties into one of the questions that I see in the chat or in the Q&A pod here, which is, what professional development would you suggest is most beneficial to new council members? I'll let you take that one, Glenn.
What I found was the best for me, and it was long before I ever became a counselor, I took a Dale Carnegie course, and it was very intense, and I learned how to speak in front of people, try not to and ah too much. And one of the things that he said is, you have to earn the right to talk about something. And I think that's the best advice I can give to people that are running for council is, know your stuff, earn the right to talk about it. And if you don't know, find out and get back. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. And Randy, what professional development opportunities did you find were most beneficial?
Well, our city always offers the orientation when we first become counselor or when the new council takes over. So we have a series of the orientation that happens. But I've really seen over the years what the municipalities of Saskatchewan do, both at their regional meetings that will be coming up after the municipal elections. We have the convention that always offers great professional development. And then, quite frankly, it's webinars like these that really can help, where you have one-on-one discussion. You can ask your questions as we're doing here. So I think that's really good. And the whole municipal leadership sessions and training that we have, anything that can offer you help. Whether it's governance or finances or legislation, I think you just keep your eyes open and try and attend as many as you can. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Randy. Mike O'Donnell, do you have any professional development items that you would suggest were most beneficial for you?
There are two. As a teacher, I have to stand in front of a group of kids all the time. So the idea of public speaking to me is really important. what I would describe it this way in terms of the city of Regina, I have done as many as 72 speaking engagements over the course of a year in front of a group of people. First of all, it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to get to know the community and welcome people to our community. But you need to have some comfort of standing in front of people. So that would be one. So whether it's Dale Carnegie or other ways. The second one that I suggest that people have is a basic understanding of how to read finances, financial statements, and have an idea of what that means. The third offering that I would give, in addition to what Municipalities of Saskatchewan offers, is don't be afraid to take a risk and go to another community and ask them what they do and see what they do. Whether it is just a town down the way or whether it's a city in another province, I find that elected people are very welcoming and want to show you how they do things. And I think sometimes that basic personal understanding is really helpful. So that's what I offer, Sarah.
Mike. So Michael, Brownlee has the municipal helpline. So you guys hear a bunch of questions from all kinds of municipal governance questions. Do you have any professional development or suggestions that might be helpful for people who are looking to run for council or people who are elected to council?
So for those that are elected, as Randy mentioned, the Municipalities of Saskatchewan has their conferences. Our office is always happy to be part of the professional development, doing legal education sessions for delegates. The municipal helpline service that we offer is available to member municipalities throughout Saskatchewan. So they can call with short legal questions that we can answer on a pro bono helpline basis over the phone. We also, through our website, our firm does articles, social media posts on issues related to municipalities, municipal governance, changes in legislation. For those that are running for office, I'd encourage you to also look at the Government of Saskatchewan's website. There is both a local government elections handbook for those of you looking to run for office, as well as a councillor handbook, which would give you a sense of roles and responsibilities if you are successful and elected. So those are a couple of resources.
Thanks, Michael. All right, so the number one question right now is, what financial commitment do you typically put into your election campaign? Randy, do you want to start that one?
I most certainly can. In Yorkton, for the first time, we're going to have limitations on the financial financial commitments you can make to a campaign. So this is the first time we've had that. But traditionally, when I'm campaigning, I've invested in signage. So for the first time, people that are running, you can invest in your signage that you can use other campaigns if you choose to run again. I have traditionally done a great deal of door knocking, so I'll have some brochures that I would hand out on the doorsteps. Of course, this year it's going to look a little differently when we're doing that, but we can with COVID restrictions. And I tend to do some newspaper ads here in Yorkton in our local newspaper, and social media, of course. But Yorkton has a great deal of a population that may not be on social media, so that's why I do the newspaper ads. So traditionally, I would say I would limit it to under $4,000, and that's the budget that I usually.
Thanks, Randy. Glenn, I know that you said or mentioned that you're running for mayor this year. So I guess what kind of financial commitment are you planning to put into your campaign?
This year it's substantial, but I know the first time I ran, it was just a popularity contest. I maybe spent $150 or $200, on an ad or something like that. And, at that point, I didn't really care whether I got elected or not. And then the next time I really wanted to get elected, but I maybe spent $500. And last time I didn't spend very much, and I just about didn't get back. I just about didn't get elected. And so this time I'm going to spend a substantial amount, not as much as Randy, but a substantial amount, 2,500.
Thanks, Glenn. Mike O'Donnell, for City of Regina, I guess, what financial commitment do you typically put into your campaign?
Thanks, Sarah. So because I would have an area, a ward that would have 20,000 people, and every other councillor has the same, it's maybe a little bit different. Our limits are 10,000 here for a councillor. I would tell you that I see the signage as being very important, and I would highly recommend coroplast signs rather than paper. It will rain for sure this fall, so please don't let them get wrecked. Two, the brochures are very, very important, and you should include a picture of yourself on that, and they need to be in the drop. I prefer to do that mostly myself, although there was 1 or 2 areas where I would do a mail drop and I wouldn't be the one dropping them. Third thing that I would highly recommend is a website. I think it's just common practice now. It's a great way to get your message out. Most people will go to that and you don't have to spend a lot of money. So in my case, I have never spent more than $2,000, but I think people should also understand that my name and face was pretty recognizable around here. So I didn't have to get my name out real hard. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Mike. I'm going to pass you the next question actually before you
Okay.
camera. So the next question is, why are councils so grossly underpaid for the time commitments that are needed? Also, how do those who work for a living work with their employers in order to maintain their paying jobs while serving the community?
So somebody who asked this question must have been watching Regina City Council in the last while, because it took me 9 years to get to the point where my council colleagues would agree that we would actually have a review of our salary. This is the first time in 19 years that we had independent people take a look at the salary for the City of Regina councillors. And it passed. And of course, because of the time of when we're doing this and so on, I think a lot of people just didn't understand why council would get an increase. We chose not to do it until next year. So in other words, a new council would benefit. The reason that we wanted to raise our salary was because we want to have a diverse council in Regina, and we want to have a situation where people, I'll say single moms or people who have limited resources can actually have the opportunity to be on council. That's one. Two, it takes a special employer to make sure that you have the time to spend to attend the meetings, because many of them are daytime meetings and so on. And I think before you would run, you need to work that out with your employer to make sure it's there. But I will defend the notion that salary is important, because you want people to be talented, work hard, and bring their skill sets forward. So I argue very much for the salary. And I will tell you, when I started 14 years ago, it was 28,000. And as I pass away this year from council, it's 44, just so you have the numbers.
Thanks, Mike. Randy and Glenn, would you guys like to answer that as well?
I can
Sure,
answer.
I would.
Oh, I'll let you go first,
It's
Randy, and then I'll pass it over to you, Glenn.
Thanks. Sorry, Glenn. It's unfortunate, because I do think that as a collective, our councils they do not receive the remuneration that would really translate into hourly wages. I do work. I have flexible opportunities to attend meetings, but in saying that, my commitment is that I will get the work done. So, for instance, I was in work all day yesterday getting work done, so I could have today off. So I have that flexibility, but not everyone does, which is unfortunate. And some potential really good counselors can't, because of the remuneration. In Yorkton, our council members make just over, about $22,000 a year. And when you break that down into the hours that we put in, it's not near enough. And hopefully in the next several terms, we are going to try and bring that up a little bit. But it's interesting. And if anyone has any suggestions on what can work even better to bring that up to a working wage, really, that would be great. So we can have inclusive councils. Thanks.
Thanks, Randy. Randy, I'll now pass that over to you, Glenn.
Okay, when I first ran, I didn't even think about money. I ran because I love Melfort, period. And sure enough, we got paid. We've got a little bit of a raise every year since then. It's not anywhere near what you put in, but it's still, you know, I mean, if you're doing it for the pay, you're doing it for the wrong reason, I think. I think last year I made 13,800 or something like that. So about $1,000 a month, yeah, for 20 hours, figured out a week. That's it.
Thanks, Glenn. Before you go, I will start with you for the next question. Now that you've been elected, what's next? What are the first few things that happened after you're first elected as a councillor?
Well, when I first got elected, I thought I knew what was going on because I was involved in the community and stuff like that. I found out that I didn't know anything, period. I found out that the city of Melfort is a small city, but the administration, it's a big business and it has to be run like a business. So my years at Home Harbor really came in handy and stuff like that. Yeah, other than that, my first term was only the 3-year term, and I was the oldest person on council, but I was the rookie, eh? And lots of guys had lots of experience. So I did a lot of listening. I got my foot in my mouth 2 or 3 times, and thank God our city clerk was very understanding, so she didn't wrap me hard on the knuckles, but she brought me in line and stuff like that. And so, you know, really my first 3 years was a learning experience, and every year, you know, I got more and more involved. I was an accountant in my first life, and so I had a heck of a time reading financial statements for the city because they are the most complicated thing in the world. Finally, about my 3rd year, I said to the city treasurer, "What is our surplus?" Because I couldn't find it on there, for crying out loud. It was page 18, line 46 or something like that. I mean, sure enough it was, but I couldn't find it. So I think accounting helps you, but you know, there's other parts of the job, you know, like public works or community service, where you don't have to be good at accounting, but knowing accounting really helps. So I don't know. The next term that I was in, I was the only returning counselor, so I had to become a team leader of the counselors and stuff like that. And I found that, you know, that my learning process in the first 3 years really helped me in the next 4. So yeah, I think it's a sharp learning curve, and if you think you know it all, believe me, you don't. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Randy, did you want to add anything? I guess for yourself, what are the first few things that happen when you first get elected to council?
Well, I guess my suggestion to anyone thinking to running is always when you first get elected, you know what you know, but you don't know a great deal of workings of a municipality. And I think my first indication would be to anyone is learn your roles and responsibilities. This is so much different than being involved in a nonprofit or any other organizations, or indeed, really even a business. And I think that's what Glenn just said. Things, you have to learn your role as a counselor, the role of the administration, the role of the CEO, and understand that so that you can work within those distinctions and do the very best on what you have to do around policy and long-term development. And so that would be my suggestion to anyone that's looking to run for council is learn your role and your responsibility so that you can bring your skills to that role that you have to perform. Thanks.
Randy, Glenn, did you want to add something?
Yes. The one thing that I didn't know and that I learned very early on is that a mayor and council only has one employee, and that's the city manager. And so micromanaging doesn't cut it. You can't get up on the grader and tell them how to drive the grader, or if you have a problem, you have to talk to your mayor, make sure that, and he'll probably just say, go talk to the administrator. And so you go and talk to your city administrator, and it's his problem. It's not your problem to correct. It's administration. So you only have one employee, the city manager.
Thanks, Glenn. I think that's something really important that I saw Randy and nodding her head. So that's something important for everyone to note. Mike, I will now turn it over to you to answer that question.
Thanks very much. The very first thing that will happen upon election is that you will be sworn in, and that means that you take an oath. And I think you have to pay very close attention to that oath. In other words, the idea that you cannot benefit from any decisions made, and that you must be open to the people who come as delegations. And before you make a decision, you must listen to all sides. That's one. I very much like the idea that it's probably best to be quiet for a while and do a whole lot of listening and a whole lot of reading. I agree with that as well. And the other point that I would emphasize is that all the people that will sit around the table that you sit at were all elected, just like you were. So you must respect that and respect them. It doesn't mean that you will agree. In fact, I think it's really healthy that you don't agree, but you must respect the people that sit around with you. I think if you do those things, those principled kind of approaches, you will start off on the right foot and life will be good. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Oh, before you go, I'm going to turn it over to you next.
Okay.
And this actually ties into the next question. So someone is asking, how did you develop a good relationship with your city administration staff? And what would you advise was a key factor?
So in our case in the City of Regina, we actually have 3 employees that council is responsible for, because we have many that work for us. One is the city manager, one is the city solicitor, and one is the city clerk. And the city clerk's office, no matter what community you're in, that is the group that kind of looks after you closely. I think, as Glenn very eloquently said, you can't interfere in the day-to-day operations. You can ask questions of your administration and so on, but you don't interfere. I think you have to come in with a very respectful approach to the people that are there. They don't have an easy job because they have many bosses. They have a whole community of bosses. And so I think it's important that you do basically both sides. 1, respect them, and 2, at times protect them as well. When council makes a decision, it is a decision of council. Just those people are just carrying out the duty. So I think a respectful notion is what I would emphasize here. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Mike. Randy, did you want to go next? How did you develop a good relationship with your city administration staff, and what would you advise was a key factor?
Well, I would just go ditto what Mike said, but indeed in our community of 20,000, our council works with 2, our city manager and our city clerk, and they both bring their skill sets into those roles, and very much when other managers or staff bring reports to city council, they're bringing the best evidence, the best research that they can. You can read that and you can ask them questions on that, but you respect that. And you may have ideas that differ from that, but that's their role to bring to us as council to help us in the decision making. And I've always been very respectful of that. I may not always agree, but I've been always very respectful for that. And I think if you can develop that relationship with administration, that'll go a long way for you to enjoy your term on council and to help you make the decisions that you can. I also, would suggest, and sometimes it's difficult in smaller communities, but I enjoy all our administration and our managers and our staff, but there's a bit of a distinct relationship that you have with them, no different than you would have with other professionals. So I also respect that. They have a home life. I don't phone them at home asking them questions. I wait till, there's a time for me to contact the city manager or city clerk during work hours. And sometimes that's difficult, but you have to respect that that they have a home life too, and you want them to enjoy that. So
Sorry, Randy, it looks like you got cut off there. Did you want to finish or? Nope. Okay. Glenn, did you have anything that you wanted to add about fostering a good relationship with your city's administration staff?
I do. Melford's a small city, 6,000 people. I worked in the hardware store. I dealt with everybody. I knew everybody, you know, on a business or personal level. And so it was really easy transition for me at that, you know, if I was in the city of Regina or Saskatoon where I wouldn't know a soul, it would have been a lot different. But for me, it was really easy. Yeah, I knew the grader driver but I, you know, I knew that I shouldn't micromanage. And so if I had a problem or I couldn't figure something out, I would talk to my mayor at that time. And then he would say, well, you know, go and talk to the city manager. So then I did. I used the right protocol, but I did one time at council chastise the director for community service, and I was out of line. I got my point across, but I was out of line. So the next day I got a call from the city clerk and she straightened me out, and I appreciate it. I knew I was out of line, but I didn't think I was until she brought it up to me. So yeah, it was really easy for me. And when I drive around, if I see anybody, you know, working, I always have a wave for them, and they always wave back, and it's kind of a really good thing. Yeah. No, that was never a problem in Melford.
Thanks, Glenn. All right, so the next question I'm going to give to Michael, and it has to do with safe door knocking with COVID-19. So Michael, I'm sure you might have gotten stuff from or heard about it at Brownlee. So if you have anything that you would like to share, I'm sure people would love it.
So I hope they love it. Thank you. Because I'm not running, I probably have put a little less effort into it, but I would suggest that the following is really, really important. Be respectful for the people at the door and don't assume that they want to talk to you. That would be my first. If I was to go door knock at this time, this is what I would do. One, I would have a mask on. Two, I would drop the leaflet in their mailbox before I knocked on the door, and I would step back greater than 6 feet. I would also wear gloves. And my first question would be, may I speak to you? And then introduce myself and then ask any questions that they may have. I think it's really important that you give a safe distance and that you not be imposing. Just direct them to the fact that you have a leaflet there and they can ask you via phone call, email, whatever, any questions that you have. But if they wish to engage, you have safe distance. Sarah, that would be my way of doing it.
Perfect, thanks, Mike. Michael, for Brownlee, did you have anything that you would like to add?
Sure. I mean, I think Mike covered off, you know, the basic requirements. There's nothing from the medical officer of health office specific to door knocking that I've seen right now, but the same general rules around social distancing, keeping your 2 meters distance, and where you can't, masking. So, you know, I think the recommendations that Mike's put forward are really good risk management practices. I think you can expect that a lot of people may be hesitant to open the doors during COVID, during campaigning. So you may want to reevaluate your campaign strategy somewhat and start looking at, you know, whether it's phone calls or a stronger online or social media presence, depending on your specific community. But certainly if you are knocking on a door, make sure that you do step back to ensure, the same way you would if you're getting any kind of home delivery service to your door, you want to make sure that you're respecting the distance and make sure you've got lots of hand sanitizer with you.
Thanks so much, Michael. All right, so I'm going to move on to our next question. And they're wondering, what would be your typical voter turnout percentage?
Sarah. I don't mind taking that one first. And the
Okay.
word I would say, it's horrible,
Yeah.
horrible. I think if I remember correctly, the last few elections, it's probably been in the low 20s. And so I'm not sure what this having a provincial election will do. I fear that it may dissuade even more people from, but I hope that what happens is with the idea that you can do a mail-in ballot, that'll make it safer and more encouraging. So I wish that I had some real good answers how to get more people out to vote, but it's been very poor here.
Thanks, Mike. Randy or Glenn, did you want to address that as well? Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, I would say we're in the low 30s percentage-wise. You know, and I don't know what you can do to get it up to get it up to a higher percentage. I'm hoping that this mail-in ballot will get more people voting. I also think that, yeah, I don't know what to think. Yeah, I'd like to know what you had to do to get people to vote. And I don't think we have anything very controversial in Melfort right now. I also think that, like Mike said, there'll be voter fatigue. I know, you know, like when you're getting your propaganda ready to go, you know, they're going to be so, by the time you know, our campaigns get into full swing, they're going to have had 4 solid weeks of provincial election, and they're going to be sick and tired of it. So I don't know what to expect or what'll happen, but I guess I'm thinking if we can get that 37% like we did last time, that would be great. Okay.
Thanks, Glenn. Randy, did you want to address that as well?
Sure, much the same. We've usually are in the very low 30s or very high 20s, and I'm very concerned about voter turnout. And you've heard that from the other panelists too about the provincial election. And I'm going to throw in another little wrench here. You know, we're all on social media and on screen. Also, we're seeing so much about the American election too. So I think we've got the provincial, then the American, and then comes us. So, you know, I'm hoping we're not going to see that voter fatigue, because we do know that everything that happens in our province and country starts off right here in the municipalities. So cross our fingers and work hard on getting our messages out. But there's concern about the turnout. And yes, we too have mail-in voting. So I'm hoping that that's going to help too, not just with the COVID concerns, but just then they can just do that right from home. Thanks.
Thanks, Randy. All right, so we're reaching the end of our time, so I'm going to try to sneak in 2 more questions here. So if there's a question that you see in the Q&A pod that you would really like asked, be sure to click the little thumbs up sign on the left, so that that's the next question in the queue after this one. So the next question is, what changes as a municipal councillor, what changes have you made, and what changes were you not able to make during your terms as council? Glenn, I'll start with you.
Well, we have a big project in Melfort going, which is called Spruce Haven Park. And, you know, there's ball diamonds there already and stuff like that. So in the new revised plan, the very first thing was a skateboard park. And we took a lot of heat over the skateboard park. But you know what? We made our decision based on talking to other communities, a lot of other communities who put in skateboard parks. And we went ahead and we voted it in. And wow, the minute the shovels hit the ground, we stopped getting flack. And I had quite a few people come to me afterwards and say they were against the skateboard park. They voted it, you know, they signed petitions against it, and they were wrong. My kids just absolutely love it, or my grandkids can't wait to come to Melfort to visit me now, because there's a skateboard park and they can go to the skateboard park. And we've had no trouble whatsoever with our skateboard park. The kids have taken control of it. There's never any trash around. There's no graffiti. The older kids help the younger kids. Like, it's fantastic. It's even way better than I ever hoped it would be. Period. Yeah, it was just great. 35-year-old dads teaching their 6 and 7, 8-year-old sons how to skateboard, and it's just not skateboard park. Like, there's scooters and there's bikes, those BMXs and stuff like that. But no, we took a lot of heat, but tremendous rewards. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Randy, for yourself, I guess some of the projects that you're really proud of during your time on council and some that you didn't quite get to see come to fruition.
Well, I think one of the projects that I was most proud that our community went down that path was we took our aging recreation facility and renovated and built new, and we now have the Gallagher Center, which has been there for 10 years, and believe it or not, we're now planning on where to next for the additions that need to happen this fall. All the work is going to be completely paid for. The loan will be paid off, so we need to start working on next steps, and the whole issue around sponsorship and naming rights. I'm very proud of. We had a local entrepreneur, local family that have had the naming rights on that building and provided a great deal of funding so we could go and continue the work on it. So I was very, very proud of that project. And anyone that knows me knows I'm a huge proponent of the benefits of sport, recreation, and culture. So I'm very proud of that. Thanks.
Thanks, Randy. And Mike, for yourself.
Thanks. I'm going to highlight two if I could. And the point of emphasis, though, I want to make is that it really was a result of us as a council working together and seeing the importance and the value of projects. So the first one was, this goes back a number of years, but we, at the time, were dealing with the federal government and the province about infrastructure and infrastructure dollars. And we hosted 2 national infrastructure summits. I was able to chair them. And we changed the dialogue federally on getting money. And so I'm very proud of that. But I stood together with our entire council and mayor when we did that. I could maybe speak to a football stadium, but I think most people know that scenario as well. So, but the other one I would mention is actually kind of like Glenn's, and that is with a small recreation facility. It happens to be our minor football field. And we, again, as a council we were able to attract federal and provincial dollars. And what we ended up was a state-of-the-art small football stadium. Because what we did is we had the soccer community and the football community both put dollars into it first. That was the seed money. Then we put money in, and the province and the feds followed. And it is right now a $9 million project with buildings and washrooms and stands, and a video screen is going up this year. And it's all because we worked together. Point of emphasis. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Mike. All right, so our next question, I think this is a Brownlee one, but I will just throw it out there. So someone says that there are a lot of questions on the package to apply regarding conflicts of interest. And their question is, if you are involved already on many things that the city is also involved in, would that eliminate your ability to have any say or work with the committees in regards to that? Michael, if you're just on mute, sorry.
All the habits. So I believe what we're talking about is conflicts of interest. And it is an important consideration. If elected, you're required to fill out a public disclosure statement that outlines your business interests, so it's clear on the face whether or not you've got any conflicts. Having conflicts may become an issue for you on council, depending on what the nature of the conflict is. Every time a matter comes before council or a council committee, you're going to have to review that matter and disclose whether or not you have a personal interest in that matter. And if you do, then you're required to declare that publicly and then step out of the room and not participate in discussions. So That includes your own personal interests, the interests of your employer, the interests of your spouse or any dependent children. Those are your baseline conflicts of interest. So depending on where you work and what organizations you're involved with, matters may come up more regularly for you than other council colleagues. Unless you're employed by the municipality, there are very few jobs that are going to conflict you out of actually being able to run for council, but do look at the legislation as far as eligibility. Beyond that, it's more just going to be a matter of there may be certain issues that you're not entitled to participate in due to your own personal financial interests or family or employer interests. But that'll be on a case-by-case basis.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michael. So we've actually reached the end of our time. I'm just going to give all our panelists a chance if they would like to say a few words before the end of the session. If there's interest, I will start at who's on top of my screen, which would be Glenn. So Glenn, if you have anything that you'd like to say, the floor is yours.
What I would like to say is that it's really different than what you think. But if you put your heart and soul into it, it's really rewarding. And you have to develop a bit of a thick skin, but that's okay. You know, like if you do your homework and know what you're talking about, you'll be okay. Yep. And good luck.
Thanks, Glenn. I will now pass it on to Randy.
Thanks, Sarah, and to everyone that's participating. I would just have to say that I've made a commitment to public service, serving on our council, and I would recommend it to anyone and everyone. I find it really contributes to the richness of not just my life, but our family's life. We have a son who has been a city manager here in Saskatchewan in Humboldt, and now works in an Alberta community. I'm trying to get him back, honestly. We have a daughter who works for the city of Saskatoon, and our daughter here in Yorkton who chairs a commission of council. So I have to say that it's a richness that is not just felt personally, but it goes to our whole family. I would highly recommend it. And if anyone wants to have any chats or discussions, I'm always open to do that. So best of luck in your endeavors. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Randy. I will now pass it over to you, Mike O'Donnell.
Thanks, Sarah. I think that this is basically one of those fundamentals of democracy that once you get involved, then I think you really start to truly appreciate about democracy and where we live. The notion of being proud of your community and being able to make additions to your community is like second to none. And so there's a notion sometimes when you go out to speak publicly and you know the business that's going on and you know the file, you have the ability to inspire others to feel good about what goes on, and you can be motivational. And I think that is something that I will miss but treasure. So it's just not like anything else I've done in my life, extremely rewarding, and I'm grateful. And I wish everyone the best of luck as they try to be elected. Good luck to you all.
Thanks so much, Mike. I will now turn it over to you, Michael, if you have any last words on behalf of Brownlee or any insight you can give.
Well, thanks, Sarah. Thanks to everyone that's participating and joining us tonight. Every community needs a strong council, and if you're at all interested, I encourage you to run and go out there and serve your community. We need a diverse group of individuals from all walks of life on councils. It's been my pleasure and our firm's pleasure working with hundreds of municipalities over many, many years, and it's such an incredibly rewarding role to have in your community, to be able to serve in a leadership capacity and watch your municipality grow into a community you can continue to be proud of for your family and the generations to come. So I'd encourage you to continue to look into it and invest, and good luck in your campaigns this fall.
Thanks so much, Michael. All right, so now for the attendees, we have a couple questions for you. So you should see another survey pop up on your screen. And just as you're filling that out, I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists for joining us this evening and sharing their insights and knowledge that they've gained from being on municipal council in a city. And I really want to thank Brownlee as well for sponsoring tonight's events. We will be providing it's definitely time to go home. We will be providing a recording of this presentation to all registrants in the next few days. And as I said earlier, if you missed Municipal Governance 101, Introduction to Local Government, we will also be sending out a copy of that recording along with today's recording. And so that brings us to the end. I hope everyone has a great evening. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to email us. Thank you again. Bye, everyone.